Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, candidates. Good evening to everyone listening to us at CJAD 800, CJAD.com, and following the Gazette's live blog at MontrealGazette.com. Welcome to CJAD and the Gazette's town hall debate between the four main candidates for the mayoralty of Montreal: Richard Bergeron of Projet Montréal, Denis Kader of Équipe Denis Kader, Marcel Côté of Coalition Montréal Marcel Côté, and Mélanie Joly of Le Vrai Changement pour Montréal. My name is James Manny of the Montreal Gazette, and I'll be your moderator for this evening's debate. But before this evening goes any further, I have one favor to ask of all of you, and ask it on behalf of the candidates. We really hope you're going to be impressed with all of the questions, all of the answers, and the progress of this debate. But they ask, and we ask, that you please hold your applause until the end of this debate. And we thank you in advance for your cooperation. Here's how this evening is going to unfold. Tonight's questions come from you, from citizens concerned about the future of their city. They were submitted to us online, and those we chose for this evening represent the concerns most commonly expressed by all of you. When we started organizing this event, we thought we'd only get a few dozen questions. By this afternoon, we had received nearly 250, and they're still coming in. Some of tonight's questions will be posed by the citizens who wrote in. Others will be posed by me on their behalf. Tonight's debate will be divided into four themes: governance, economic policy, relations with other municipalities and the provincial government, and a topic we've decided to call character. The character we expect of this city and of the person who's going to end up running it. Candidates will entertain two questions on each of these themes. We will also end with a special round in this debate where the candidates will be able to question the opponent of their choice. And I am so looking forward to that. Prior to this debate, a series of draws were held to determine the order in which the candidates would deliver their opening and closing statements, as well as respond to questions from the audience. Those opening statements of the candidates' subsequent initial answers to questions from the floor are limited to 1 minute, after which candidates will be free to question each other about the topic under discussion and reply to any follow-up questions I may have. And so without further ado, let's proceed to the candidates' opening statements. Madame Joly, you drew first place. The floor is yours.
Thank you. On November 3rd, Montrealers have a critical choice to make about the future of the city we love. This election is about transparency and integrity. It's about rebuilding confidence in our future. It's about who you believe will really turn a page to build an administration dedicated to solving problems and not hiding them. Old habits don't simply fade away. I entered this race because it's time to elect a team that is committed to empowering the citizens of Montreal. Your city's administration should treat you as real stakeholders. That is why we've presented a clear and coherent 10-point plan. We offer real solutions fixing our transit problems and repairing our infrastructure. We can learn from great cities like New York, Vancouver, and Copenhagen. Join me and let's build a dynamic, caring, and prosperous Montreal. Thank you.
Mr. Bergeron.
Thanks, Mr. Mini. Good evening, everybody. On November 3, one of two things will happen. Either Denis Kader will be elected or it will be someone else. I have come to know Denis Kader, and I confess, he's not a bad guy. But Denis Kader chose to surround himself with the very politicians who brought change to Montreal. 25 in all. Politicians who may not be corrupt, but who nonetheless didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, didn't say anything. That's a recipe for another 4 years of business as usual. I offer a different approach. Ow. My team at Projet Montréal was open and transparent before it became fashionable, and that will not change. Projet Montréal is also proposing concrete, ambitious, and realistic plans to make Montreal a great North American city again. Thank you.
Mr. Côté.
Montreal needs help. What happened at City Hall should never have happened. And I joined the mayoralty race to ensure it will never happen again. I intend to pursue three major objectives. First, ensure that Montreal is governed by all Montrealers. and that free votes prevail at City Council like they do in most North American cities. This is the basic coalition model. Second, I want to do major reforms at City Hall, a quiet revolution. I have been doing such restructuring all my life, and I intend to do it at City Hall. And thirdly, having rebuilt investor confidence, I want to reboot the economy and ensure plentiful job opportunity for all, including the many young Montrealers who have left this city. I've also have specific engagement for the Anglophone community. I'll get back to that later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert.
Well, thank you to the Gazette and CJD for organizing this event. I congratulate my colleagues here on stage and the borough candidates for their commitment to our city. But of course, I encourage you all to support Équipe de Nicodère. We have what it takes to rejuvenate our great city. We have a comprehensive program to restore integrity, deal with our ailing infrastructure, improve traffic flow, and efficiently provide your daily services. We also know we don't need another language crisis, and that our success depends on all of us working together. But it's one thing to know, and another thing to deliver. Équipe de Nicodère has a talented team of City Hall veterans and community-involved newcomers ready to deal head-on with the issues starting November 4th. And I have the experience to lead this team and the city. I am determined to negotiate with Quebec City and Ottawa and to bring international businesses and organizations to our city. We now have the opportunity to make Montreal first choice for foreign investment thanks to the new Canada-Europe free trade deal. Équipe de Nicodère will get the job done. Thank you very much.
We now, thank you very much for the opening statements. We now come to the first topic in tonight's debate, governance. And our first question comes from Mary Ellen Baker, who now, she lives in NDG. You have the floor, ask your question.
Although you have debated a variety of issues in the campaign, the number one issue is still governance, which should include integrity and teamwork. How would you reform the administration of Montreal if you were elected?
You can handle that first, Mr. Kader.
Well, first of all, of course, we need transparency, and it's tolerance zero vis-a-vis the corruption. So that's why I want to change the culture of management. I want to bring also an inspector general who will be kind of a police of contracts, who will be there totally independent to depoliticize the procurement process. Change the way that we're working at the bureaucracy level and make sure that we are more inclusive and work all together. Instead of talking about centralization versus decentralization, we should provide all the tools to make sure that we're talking more about efficiency, check and balance, and coherence. And the fact that I'm close to the people and that we'll have people who will be more accountable, I really believe that we can make the job done. So with the experience that I have in management and politics and how to deal with powers, I really believe that I have and my team has what it takes to change the culture and the kind of management that we had for the last years.
Madame Joly.
Your question is the question, the most important question, because the biggest problem of Montreal is corruption. And we still have a corruption problem in Montreal. That being said, how do we solve it? By making sure that there's transparency. But more than what Mr. Kader is saying, how can you change a system? Well, the most important problem in that system is that only certain people have access to information, and information is power. So we do like Michael Bloomberg did in New York. We make sure that all the information that the city has becomes public. And to do that, we have a chief digital officer, a person who will be in charge of transferring all that information through the web, through social media. And that way, there won't be only one inspector general like Mr. Kader is saying. There will be 1.2 million inspector generals in Montreal, and that's what we need to do.
Mr. Bergeron. Oh, I beg your pardon. Mr. Cote.
Okay, thank you. Corruption does not take hold well in well-managed organizations. So the best defense against corruption is a well-managed organization. And City Hall now is very badly organized. We have first to introduce a lot more check and balance that they have now. Eliminate the concentration of power in the hand of the few. We have to eliminate the bureaucratic silos at City Hall, and there's a lot of them. We have to get more transparency. The best defense around against corruption is thousands pair of eyes that look into it, and there's lots of room for better. We have to finally get some missing resource, especially in contract management. And finally, we have to get an ethics commissioner, a compliance program, and get it work.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron.
For Projet Montréal, integrity is not a fashionable word. We were created 10 years ago, and we have 10 years of perfect integrity. Just to give you an example, our rules of financing were drafted in 2009 by Judge John Gerway. That should convince you of our perfect integrity. And the issue of this campaign is integrity. Be sure that nobody for ex-Union Montréal will be re-elected. That's the main objective that you should have in head on voting day, November the 3rd. And you don't change politics with the same people. We offer a whole team of honest people running for Projet Montréal.
Thank you. Now, if you will allow me, candidates, I have one follow-up question that sort of begs to be asked. You have all referred to your teams, your parties, if you will, your political affiliations. Most of us who are paying attention to the Charbonneau inquiry discovered that if there was any malfeasance going on, it wasn't being done by elected officials, it was being done by bureaucrats, people who were working within the system at City Hall. And anyone, frankly, whoever speaks up first, that's fine, but how can you ensure so vast a pool of personnel is going to be as honest as you'd like them to be?
I'm on the board of large organization, a lot bigger than the city of Montreal. We handle a lot more money. We don't have these problems. We don't have these problems because it's well managed. And that's the major problem of the city of Montreal. It's not well managed. If you manage properly, there's no corruption at Bell, or if there is, it's caught in the bud. And it's the same with Sauvé, Loblaws, and name all the large organizations which handle a lot more money and buy a lot more stuff than the city of Montreal do.
Mr. Pierre?
Well, you need check and balance. I used to be president of Privy Council, and I implement the law of whistleblower. So we have to have check and balance. We need to have some structure where we can be in a preventive mood. And that's why also I said that we should rotate senior public services position every 2 years. We should have more inside job. We should make sure that we professionalize in a better way our public sector. And by getting rid of all those silos, by having check and balance and make sure that it's in a more transparent way, using all the technology I want to implement, as you know, the smart city, we truly believe that because we will have that, plus the Inspector General will be able to make everybody accountable. The reality is that a lot of things happen and nobody's taking the blame or taking responsibility.
We'll come back to the Inspector General in a bit because there were some comments made today about the Inspector General that we'd like to explore. Madame Joly.
The most important thing is, as I said, transparency, and transparency brings accountability. So we want to make sure that all civic servants, public servants that work within the City of Montreal understand that rules are clear and that they're accountable towards elected officials, to the population, and also that elected officials are accountable to the population. How do we do that? We want to make sure that rules are clear. So, for example, that if somebody goes and gets a permit on authorization, well, the delays are shortened, the criteria are clear, decisions are motivated. There's not that culture of opacity that that's been going on for years in Montreal, and that no elected official has been tackling. And that's what we'll make sure to do, and that's how we'll make sure also that we have a good business environment.
We'll give the last word to Mr. Bergeron.
Mr. Meny, it's not true that the corruption began at the civil servants level. It was largely at the head of the city, at the members of the city council, beginning with the leader of the executive committee, Mr. Zampino, and all the other elected people, members of Union Montreal surrounding him, choose to close their eyes, to shut their mouth. And if the head of the fish is fresh, the whole fish will be fresh. I don't know if this applies in English as an expression, but we're used to saying that. We are used to say that in French.
Okay.
Sorry.
We get the idea.
You get the idea.
We'll just leave the metaphor. We'll leave the metaphor there. It's time for our second question on the issue of governance, and it comes from Richard Nair of Pierrefonds. Good evening.
Good evening. With all the promises that you've made over the last month, I want to know what each of you plan to do in the first 100 days of office. Thank you.
And that question will be answered first by Madame Joly.
Well, within the first 100 days, I'll name 4 people. Of course, I'll have a new Directeur Général, but more than that, I'll have a Chief Digital Officer for the transparency measures I've talked to you about. Second thing, I'll have a Chief Development Economic Officer to make sure that there's no red tape and there's a better economic environment at City Hall. I'll also make sure to have a new agency that will be in charge of quality for our infrastructure work and coordination, and that will be the person will be the Directeur Général of Infra Montréal, and the 4th person will be a public curator to make sure that we value art throughout the city of Montreal. And we have a BRT system of 130 kilometers, and within the first 100 days, I'll make sure that the STM and the new agency, Infra Montréal, have a clear plan to execute the the first 62 kilometers of BRT.
Thank you, Madame Joly. Mr. Cote.
We have 11 Director General at City of Montreal in the past 12 years. If you want to create turmoil in the organization, change CEOs 11 times in 12 years. So we have to bring stability. I'll carefully choose, assess the one who's there on an interim basis, and if he's not the one, there'll be another one. Right now, at this moment, we cannot talk to him because we're a candidate and he's staying away. That's the first thing. It'll take at least a month. We have to form an executive committee within 2-3 weeks. I'll make sure in that executive committee that there is an executive vice president finance who does only the finance. He'll hold the purse string. Then there'll be 10 other members. They each will have a letter of mandate clearly specifying what they do, what they don't do, and what the rules of the game. Then I will probably appoint an ethics commissioner in the first 100 days, and he will be working on his code of conduct. We won't have time to do all the change that Mrs. Joly suggested because we have a charter, we have to obey the law, and there's some procedure, you know, that we have to follow. We'll go as fast as we can.
Mr. Bergeron.
I will not proceed to 3, 4, 5, 6 nominations because the whole team of Projet Montréal are honest people, and I will be sure that these new people in charge, if they are from Projet Montréal, they are honest. We don't need so many nominations. And you know, for a problem like this one, that is a structural problem. It's not true that 1, 2, or 3 people can make the difference. It is the whole team that will lead Montreal for the next year that has to be clean, and with Projet Montréal, they will be clean. After that, for the 100 days, sorry, it will be the budget. And my colleagues don't know how difficult it is to balance a budget, especially if you have ambitions for Montreal. I will need to work with my team to prepare the following, this year, 2014, and the 3 following years by working very hard on the budget with honest people.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Kader.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm going to change the locks because it seems that there's a lot of keys that let them people possess. Secondly, for sure, what I'm going to do, I'm going to meet the employees because it's important to send them a message that they are part of the solution. And I need them, we need them, to make sure that we will make this city flourish again. Thirdly, of course, I want to put up already and plan the Inspector General, the team, the department, negotiate with Quebec because we have to change the charter to make sure that they will have all the investigative powers. And then, I already have a team. I already proposed a future president of the executive committee. I have a great team who's ready to do the job at several levels. You heard all of them as spokesperson. But then we need to prepare the budget. We need to make sure that the budget will be done, because I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of bad news. And we need to implement the new plan for the immobilization.
And I thank you, Mr. Coderre. I have to ask the candidates, and this is a great question, because it does lead to something that was mentioned by Mr. Bergeron. And Mr. Cote, I want to start with you and see if you can respond to that. Nobody at this table has ever been a mayor, and only one person at this table has ever worked at City Hall. Do you have either the team or the knowledge to go in fully armed day one as mayor of Montreal and get these things done? Do you have that background knowledge? To you, Mr. Cote, first.
Well, I've just been in politics for 4 months, so it's even worse than what you just described. I've seen the organization, how organization can be structured. I will listen, I will talk to people, I have a lot of energy. We can do a lot. I figure that most of my major reform will be done in 18 to 24 months. By that time, it will show. And although I never worked for the city, never been there, and to be honest, I didn't know much about the internal functioning of the city until I decided to run for mayor, but I've learned fast, and I think I know quite a lot by now.
Madame Jolie, are you a quick study?
Yes, actually, I know I don't have, it's true, I know I don't have the political experience. I'm a lawyer. I've run a company, one of the Molson family businesses, and I have a lot of leadership. I've been involved in community affairs for years. I've been involved on different boards, maybe the Quebec Pension Fund, maybe the Musée d'Art Contemporain, the Fondation du CHUM, so important institutions in Montreal. And by the way, I'm 34, and the mayor of Edmonton is 34 now. That being said, I have a really good team of a lot of newcomers in politics, and architects, engineers, lawyers, artists, and we're very proud of it.
And we have Mr. Coderre. You have a lot of flight time as a politician in Ottawa, although a lot of people will say that City Hall is not Ottawa. How prepared do you think you are?
Well, it's the same taxpayer. It's all about power. It's all about to manage with people. It's all about managing a crisis. It's all about to understand how the system works. It's not. We won't have that much time for learning curve here. So we need to know how to deal with unions, and it's about also to have that capacity to bring the people together. So it's not just based on the employees, but it's also based on the citizens. We need to have somebody who's already close to the people. And the fact that I have all that kind of experience, it's an add value for the city. We need also, it's like the Thomas Friedman said, think global, act local. So I can act local, but think global. You need that experience also internationally to make sure that we will make that metropolis shine again. And the fact that I know a lot of the players, I can see Peter Trent, a great mayor from Westmount. I mean, we know he spoke already. I can speak to a lot of those people already. So we will start to work to make the community works again and make sure that it's not just based on the city of Montreal, but there's issues with security, water, firemen, transport, and we need not to work as silos, but all work together. And you need that kind of experience to start on November 4th.
Thank you.
Hi,
Mr. Bergeron, just to ask you, yes, you spent a lot of time in City Hall, but you've been in the opposition. How prepared are you to run Montreal?
For sure, Montreal is a big machine, a huge one, very complex, too complex. I will have a debate next year with all Montrealers about the governance of the city. I suspect that at the political level, we will reconcile ourselves with this political level. That could mean maybe 5 or 6 city councillors less, but it will remain, I suspect, the same thing. There's a lot of job to do at the administrative level, and for this job, I will hire Mr. Cote.
Thank you very much. All right.
Taking my idea.
We now
of the first-
proceed to the next topic on our town hall debate, that of economic policy, very important to a lot of people. And our first question comes from Luke Wang. He lives in the Southwest. Please, you have the floor.
Good evening. If you like the mayor, instead of increasing taxes, increasing fees, reducing services, what you going to do to generate more revenue? If you have the problem that, like previous administration, that either it's a Big C or STM and it's diring the pension problem as we discussed for this morning, what do you do? Thank you.
So how do you increase revenues without increasing taxes and fees or reducing services? And we will start with Mr. Cote.
In the short run, we cannot increase revenue that rapidly. So we have to tighten our belt. As Mr. Bergeron, we're starting with a budget crisis probably in January, February. There has been no CEO in this shop for over 5, 6, 7 years, maybe 10 years. Nobody really in charge of the purse string. So all the members of the executive committee are pushing for their own pet project. We have to put discipline there. And then gradually there will be a margin, a budgetary margin freeing up. Once the budgetary margin freed up, any money that gets out of there will have to go either STM, which announced a $60 million deficit next year, or just fixing the streets. And I can tell you, the streets of Montreal now they can take a few $100 million in fix. So that's where the money will go.
Thank you, Mr. Cote. Mr. Bergeron.
We have to make the difference between two budgets, the investment project and the operation project. Available for the investment project is the $100 million a year that were robbed in the last decade, year after year. This money right now will be available to invest, for instance, in the tram network. And going now to the operation budget, there's a simplification to do. It's too complex. We have too many high-ranking civil servants, not enough engineers. And when we will do that with Mr. Cote, we can save more or less $100 million a year. That will be for the beginning. To invest in what is desperately needed for Montreal, for instance, to increase the level of the transport system, everybody knows that we need $250 million more a year. That could be with the taxes on gas, that could be on tolls, and we will have to discuss with the government about how to add these $250 million a year.
Madame Joly.
The reality is, Montreal is a property tax junkie. 70% of our revenues come from property tax. When you compare to other big cities, Toronto is 39%. And in the US, it's big major cities, it's around 18%. It's time that Montreal gets a special status from Quebec. We're the only team talking about it, but it's clearly the only solution we can get. So it's 0.5% of the QST generated on the territory of Montreal, and it's time to seize the opportunity because in 2014, Quebec and the municipalities throughout Quebec will be negotiating for their new fiscal pact, and I'll be the one making sure that we get that 0.5% of QST.
Thank you, Madame Joly. I have to tell you, and it's not giving anything away, a special status is as part of the questions that you'll be dealing with a little bit later. We're running just a little bit tight on time, though. So, with your permission, I'm going to proceed to the next question on economic policy. It comes. Beg your pardon? Oh, I beg your pardon. Oh, I missed you. Sorry, my mistake.
I'll moderate you now.
Okay.
You know, fiscal pact exists before a candidate announced their candidacy. I know that I spoke about fiscal pact too, but what we need to do at the beginning, you need to know what's the truth, what's the reality of the budget, what's truly is going on with your tax money. So I believe that first thing first, we'll take a look at the budget. I think, and all my fellow candidates limit tax increase to the rate of the inflation. So I think that for the next 4 years, that's important to mention. But, or you cut the expense, or you raise the revenue, and I don't think that, people are mad, rightfully enough, that we don't have to go deeper in your pocket. So I think that, like in the movie, if they say you can't handle the truth, yes, you can handle the truth. And I think that's, to be honest and realistic and pragmatic, that's the first thing that we should say. And I believe that, yes, we need a fiscal pact eventually. We need to negotiate, but we need to clean our own house first. And if we're not doing that, we will have a major problem. And to do so, we need also to make sure that we are a regional power, so we can have some negotiation tool to go after Quebec City par la suite.
And I thank you, Mr. Connector. Our next question on economic policy comes from Sandrine Campo, who had every intention of being here this evening, but unfortunately was knocked over by a cold. So we're asking this question on her behalf. Her question is, Montreal is lagging behind many other North American cities when it comes to the economy. How would you improve the economic vitality of Montreal? And that question goes first to Mr. Bergeron.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mini. There's a real economic drama for Montreal, and this drama has lasted for the last 25 years. It's the massive exodus of middle classes, and specifically young families, to the surrounding suburbs. Year after year, in the last 12 years, we lost 22,000 people. That means between 6,000 and 8,000 young families. And the result of that is that $2.5 billion a year are invested by Montrealers outside of Montreal. By saying that we want to keep families, that it's a priority for Projet Montréal. It's not only because it is sharp, it's nice. It's also the main economic decision that we can have. And to have these people accepting to live on the island of Montreal, we need to increase the level of the transit system, the old system, the metro, the tramway, the BRT that Madame Jolie loves so much, the buses, the taxi, all these things.
We know public transit. We know you can go on, sir, but you're out of time. So we'll give the floor to Mr. Kader.
Well, we talk about vitality. Of course, we want to talk about the citizen. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about the economic environment. So I think that first thing first, we need to create a distinct economic development department, because we want to establish a viable local development policy and manage large projects. Two things that we have to do also. I want to repatriate the old port of Montreal so it can be under Montreal Authority, and I'd like to create a cruise ship port and a fair exposition with a duty-free area, because we have about 5 to 6 million tourists who's going there. The other thing that will be very, very important, Montreal is a European city in a North American context, so I think we can create a hub there for the free trade, not only between Canada and Europe, but also afterwards between United States and Europe. So, because if we want to have more revenue, we will be able to have more airways companies, and other headquarters will be there, and it will create a lot of small enterprises.
And I thank you, Mr. Kader. Madame Jolie.
Okay, let's get real. Okay, there's only 3 key things to do to better the economic environment of Montreal. First of all, we have to get rid of corruption. So not only people that were rooted in the system and elected officials, but more than that, transparency, and I've talked about it a bit earlier. Second thing, one of the biggest problems of Montreal is traffic, is congestion. We have one of the worst car traffic in North America. So we need a solution. We have the right solution, which is 8 times less than a metro, than a tramway, and 40 times less than a metro. It's a BRT system. And third thing, to make sure that we have the right economic environment, is we need efficiency. And I've talked about it. It's basically reducing red tape and making sure that processes are clear when it's time to get permits and authorizations from the city. If we're able to do that, we're able to get things rolling in terms of economy in Montreal.
Thank you, Madame Jolie. Mr. Cote.
First, we have to have a well-managed city, and that's the first task of the mayor. And to have a well-managed city means focusing on this first and foremost instead of spreading yourself thin over all kinds of things. Once this is well-managed, investor confidence will pick up. And investors and private entrepreneurs will be the one rebuilding the economy. If we don't disrupt them with one of our biggest problems of Montreal, our recurring battle on nationalism and on language. We have to manage our linguistic duality. We have to live with it and manage it, and the mayor has an important leadership role in that regard. I intend to do that, and then this city will be built on creativity and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad, Candace, to see that you're getting warmed up on the issues of status for Montreal and the issues of language in Montreal, because those are questions that are coming up. But I want to ask you, and Mr. Cote, I'm going to start with you and go along the table, because whereas I mentioned Mr. Bergeron's experience as a municipal politician, you have a great deal of experience in the business world. Montreal is a brand. It's a brand like CJAD, like the Gazette. It's a brand that has been battered. It's a brand that a lot of people say has been diminished and devalued over the past few years. How do you restore that brand?
First, move it away from a brand of a city where people don't get along. So make sure that you don't have these past the gate, and even the charter doesn't help us. All of these things are not conducive to the working of the Montreal model, which is a very unique model. We're the largest bilingual and bicultural city, multicultural city in the world. We have all kinds of assets which are attached to our special situation, a North American city where French is the common language, but there's all kinds of other languages. 40% of Montreal's population comes from either immigration or visible minority. This is an asset. We have to turn that into an asset. And the future brand of Montreal will be a creative city. And look at what we do artistically, and we have to transport that into our business world. Thank you.
Mr. Coder, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan for Montreal's brand?
Well, first of all, the mayor of Montreal and his team, but the mayor specifically has to be a champion. And Montreal should be for all Montrealers. And every time that there's a situation, instead to divide to conquer, because we're playing somebody else's game for a future election, I think that we have to say we are proud Montrealers, and every time that there's a situation, you're not afraid to take a stand and say that we're all first-class citizens. So that's the part of the brand that I want to say. Secondly, of course, with the knowledge, with the experience, with the fact that, we can have put up all the forces together and say the time has come to finish, to be in the waiting room, to don't believe in ourselves. And we're supposed to be that conductor, that bridge builder, that will make sure that if you don't have the answer, you surround yourself with the right people, and you just put up that plan to go from point A to point B. But we have to start by ourselves to believe in ourselves, and that's my intention.
Thank you. Madame Jolie.
I think we already believe in ourselves. And I think also that we need new people, and we need real change on November 3rd to revamp Montreal. Not only that, we need a mayor that basically represents Montrealers. Montreal is a city where the population has the higher level of bilingualism. That was hard. It's also a young city. There's many universities. It's a university city, and it's important to position ourselves as a city where our culture is unique, and we're also a vibrant city. And by having new people in charge, we'll bring new ways of doing things, and we'll enter new networks here, throughout Quebec, throughout Canada, but also throughout the world.
And we'll give the last word to Mr. Bergeron.
Yeah, you know that I'm a urban planner, and what I see all around the world is that attractive cities attract new companies of the 21st century, not companies of the middle of the 20th century. And what will be the answer of a visitor in Montreal compared to what is right now Barcelona, for instance, or Sydney in Australia? You know, it's not bad. We don't have a so bad city, but there's so much to do to improve the attractiveness of Montreal. And if we keep our 8,000 to 9,000 households that leave Montreal, and if we have this 2.5 billion a year to invest on the territory of Montreal, we will have the money to cover the Ville-Marie Expressway downtown that is so ugly. We will have this population to have 75,000 people downtown, living downtown. We will have the money to build 2 primary schools in the downtown and 1 secondary school, 1 high school. And all this, and to build the Maritime Gateway neighborhood that will be so beautiful. And it is the way we have to go on to be compared again with Barcelona and Sydney.
And we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much. We proceed to the next topic of tonight's debate. Relations with the rest of the Montreal region and Quebec, something that all of you have touched on slightly. It was perhaps the single most posed question by our readers and listeners. I will take a version from Joe Bontemps, which says, and it's a very simple question, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Coderre. Would you be in favor of promoting a special status for Montreal, or the island of Montreal, as a distinct society within the province of Quebec? Mr. Coderre.
Well, in politics for so many times, I don't want to bring back another national question again. Special status means a lot of things. What we need to do, maybe like in Ontario with the status of Toronto, I think that's good. But we have to do it for the right reason. We need to have more revenues. We have to compare ourselves with the biggest cities. You know, you don't define the world by continent or by countries anymore. It's by cities. By the next 20 years, we will have over 70% of the overall world population who will live in cities. So we have to do something about it. We receive 15% of all our newcomers, so there's issues with integration. We need to work in a better way, like in the CUM in the past, regarding issues with water, security and all that. So we have to manage our density. So we need, clearly, Quebec needs to respect us in a better way. So I know, of course, I know Quebec, I know that it's bureaucracy, and no matter which party in the last 20, 30 years, we had some issues with the way that...
Well, it's always one of two, Mr. Coderre, and you're out of time. It's always one of two parties, so thank you. Madame Joly.
I'll be back.
I've talked about special... That's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've talked about special status, and I'll tell you how we'll be able to get it. I think we need to relaunch a dialogue between regions in Quebec and Montreal. I think that Quebecers, Quebecois need to understand the fact that when Montreal is suffering, the entire Quebec is suffering. And that we're the economic locomotive of Quebec. And within the first year of my mandate, I'll make sure to go and meet with people throughout Quebec to let them know, to talk about Montreal, in order also to get that special status in terms of revenues. Second thing, you were talking about, Mr. Meny, about the importance of working with other mayors of the agglomeration. Yesterday, we talked about a very specific project, which is the Cavendish Boulevard. It would be a pleasure.
You've been talking about that at Montreal
yes,
for
but
a very long time.
But with the Turcotte interchange, we need to find solutions, and I'll make sure to work with Anthony Asfather and other mayors.
And I have to give the floor to Marcel Cote right now.
Thank you.
We have to be realistic. We have to play our hand at the right moment. I can tell you now, going to Quebec City to ask for special status is without work, you won't get it. You won't get your 0.5% of the Quebec tax is totally politically impossible. I mean, we can say all kinds of things. We can have pie in the sky. When I was young, you know, the critics were here. They were promising to send everybody some money. But at the end of the day, we have to be realistic. We won't get a special status in the next 4 years. We first have to clean up our house. We have enough problem. We can just simply patching on the island of Montreal relation with the 12 cities which are not part of the city of Montreal would be a big advantage. Let's build the alliance not on talk but on reality.
Thank you, Mr. Cote. Mr. Bergeron.
Mr. Mini, to answer your question, as the mayor of Montreal, I will defend Montrealers and Montrealers only. If the mayor of Montreal do not defend Montrealers, if he thinks that he is the president of the CMM or I don't know what, who will defend Montrealers? In the last 12 years with the Union Montreal administration, Montrealers were not defended. Having said that, we have too many structures. Montreal is the metropolis of a very small country. You know what I mean. 8 million people only in the Quebec province. We have the structures of a country of $60 to $80 million because we have look what were the structure in France and Germany, and you say that will be a good idea to have a CMM. And the CMM was used by the government to hide the fact that it don't take its responsibilities regarding to the future of Montreal.
And I thank you, Mr. Bergeron. I'm sorry, we're out of time.
Already 1 minute?
Already 1
It's
minute?
so fast.
It goes, well, you're having fun. That's why it's going so fast. I have to tell you, candidates, with your permission, I'm going to go to our next question because it's so linked to what you're talking about right now, and I want you to have more time to debate this amongst yourselves because clearly a lot of people are interested in what you have to say. So we're going to go to our next question. It comes from Lynn Martin, who grew up in NDG and is now a Pierrefonds resident. Welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. Do you think the mayor of Montreal, in his or her relations with the government of Quebec, should be taking a stronger stand when it comes to language legislation that restricts English? And what do you think of the language situation now in Montreal?
And that question goes first to Madame Joly.
I think that we should be proud of our cultural uniqueness. And I think we should be proud that our population is the highest, has the highest level of bilingualism in North America. That being said, I know I'll have to choose my battles. And the biggest battle of Montreal right now is corruption. And the second biggest problem of Montreal is car traffic. And I would like to tell you, yes, I'll do everything you want me to do. But I'm not that type of politician. I won't tell you things I won't tell you promises I won't be able to keep. And that's why I want to make sure that my priorities are well understood and that I'll fight for it. And when Mr. Cote was talking about special status and the fact that he doesn't believe that we can get 0.5% of the QST, my generation won't accept the fact that we can get more from Montreal.
And I thank you, Madame Joly. Mr. Cote.
Our program is quite explicit on that. We believe that the Anglophone in Montreal have rights, that they have the rights to be served in their language, and I will uphold that right, and I've been saying that for 30 years. I'm not a new converted. Second, we have to manage our English-French duality. We are very badly served when Quebec comes in very clumsily and intervene. We have to be ahead of the curve, and that's what I intend to do. We also have to improve significantly the representativeness of city employment, the City of Montreal employment, and we've said in our program, and even Mrs. Arel signed on that we'll have an affirmative action program to get the employment in line with the demographic reality of Montreal. The socio-demographic reality.
Thank you, Mr. Cote.
This is all in writing, all in writing.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron.
My opinion on this topic is that we have reached a very good balance between languages in Montreal. I don't see such a big problem there. If an English, you know, I knew that you will maybe oppose to what I will say. If an English-speaking person wants to be served in English, he can be served anywhere in any borough of Montreal, and the same is true. Yeah, you just have to ask, and you will be where the city has to serve you in English if you want to be served in English, even in Mercier-Maisonneuve, where Madame Montreal was living. And it is your right. It is your right. It is your right. And French community has the same right. And you know, if the government comes each 2 years or each 4 years and put the oil on the fire on this topic, we know that it is a very delicate topic. I really appreciate the balance we have right now, and I
we'll have to leave it
particularly
there.
appreciate the fact that the new generation of Montreal are perfectly bilingual.
All right, Mr. Bergeron.
Beginning by my 2 children.
Thank you. Mr. Kader.
All right.
Children comes before you.
S'il vous plaît. The name of the game here is respect. The name of the game is rights. So it's not a matter of choosing our battle, it's a matter of do we feel that everybody feel like first-class citizens. The role of a mayor is to make sure that their people are happy. So we have to cut the fact, now, you know, City Hall is not a parliament. So maybe we'll save 2 hours of motions right there. But what we need to show is that we are an administration. And the role of an administration is to provide services. So we need to find a way that the reality are the facts. So my role, like Marcel said, my role is to make sure that we provide those services. It's also a matter of representativity. We have to represent, it's not just for the Anglophone, it's also for what the mosaic of the diverse cultural communities represent. We need to show to everybody that this is Montreal. And the way that we'll say this is Montreal is by the employment policy, it's by the housing policy, and it's by the services policy. So
okay.
I'm a Francophone, I'm a proud Francophone, but I'm a proud Montrealer, and I believe that we need to reflect the reality of Montreal. That's my job, and that's what I'm going to do.
And I thank you, Mr. Kader. Clearly, candidates, you've noticed that this room has some rather definite opinions on what we've just been talking about. But there is one political fact that doesn't get often, is not often mentioned. But the mayor of Montreal, and I'm sure one of you will correct me if I'm wrong, receives more votes than any other elected official in Quebec. Those votes don't just come from the usual blocs, and they don't come from the usual supporters of the usual parties that we usually send to Quebec City. And I'd like to know from any of you sitting there, whether you believe it's going to be you as a mayor of Montreal would be able to break what a lot of people perceive as gridlock, what has been keeping this city in neutral for the past 40 years. I'll start with you, Mr. Cote. You have clear opinions on this.
First, every mayor since Mr. Drapeau has been saying that he has more vote than, in fact, the Premier of Quebec. But that doesn't change the fact. What we have to get is respect. How do you get respect? By achieving things. How do you achieve things? You first pursue things which you can resolve, which you can do. You achieve the right priorities. Look at all the very successful mayors. They've tackled the problem of the day. The problem of the day here is managing City Hall. And if you manage City Hall, you clean up the house, and you start offering better service, remove some of these cones that don't do nothing, then in Quebec City, they will start to respect you. You have to do an alliance with the suburb, with the rest of the islands, instead of treating them with disrespect, which we do for the non-merge municipalities. We should treat them with respect. We should try leadership with the rest of the metropolitan community. That will give us power and respect in Quebec City, but you're going to get it slowly at a time. Don't expect suddenly the whole political dynamics of Quebec change because Montreal wants it to be changed.
Madame Joly, you said earlier that your generation is not going to accept, how can I put it, being delayed in what it wants. Do you agree with what Mr. Cote just said?
Well, I believe that we need to change the conversation. And to do that, we need to make sure that the rest of Quebec understands the political reality and the cultural reality of Montreal. And that's why I've said clearly that within the first year of my mandate, I'll go and I'll make sure that I meet people in the regions of Quebec and talk about the reality of Montreal and talk about the importance of a metropolis in a state. Because if you look at it, Montreal has a higher taux de chômage, higher employment rate than the rest of Quebec. And elsewhere in the world, there's only Manchester where you see that. So usually your unemployment rate is lower in your metropolis. So that's why there's an impact on the rest of Quebec, and that's what I'll do. So, and I know that Montreal has been the battlefield of a lot of parties, of provincial and federal parties. And we need to get rid of that gridlock, and we need to make sure to change the conversation. That's our plan.
Mr. Bergeron.
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Mini, when you say that, in theory, the mayor of Montreal is the strongest politician in Quebec because so many people vote for him if you compare even to the Prime Minister. But the reality is that in the last 12 years, we had a mayor who was a member of a team in Quebec, and he had to follow the rules of his boss in Quebec. The best example of that is Turcotte interchange. I was very proud to prepare as responsible for urban planning at CTR, member of the executive committee for 1 year, to prepare an alternative to the very bad project presented by the government. And Mayor Charlie was proud, but 3 days after he had presented this project, he has changed his mind because he was ordered by his boss in Quebec to change his mind. And one thing you can be sure with me, I'm not a member of any team in Quebec nor in Ottawa. That's what I mean when I say that I will defend Montrealers. And I strongly believe that if the mayor of Montreal say no to any project coming from Quebec or from Ottawa, they will not proceed with their project.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Kader, I would respectfully submit that certainly at the federal level, you have the most political experience at this table. There's a lot of political expertise that says one of the reasons we're in the situation we're in Montreal is that we do not win elections for politicians in Quebec, the regions do. Do you think Montreal's political importance is diminished, or do you think things are all right now with our relations?
No. Peter Drucker said the difference between a manager and a leader. A manager is doing things right, and the leader is doing the right thing. That's the reality, and it's all about leadership, and it's all about to make sure that you know how to deal with politics and how to deal with power. You know, we had several waves. We even have Régis Labombe, who said that he would control the amounts of writing at one point, and the NDP won it all. And he looks like he was closer to the government in place. So it doesn't mean anything anymore. But it's all about an attitude. It's all about knowing the game. It's all about, impose yourself. Okay, we can be good manager. We can, clean the house, and we have to do that. But when we're playing politics, it's not by being in our little silos saying that I'm going to just work with the people in Montreal and I'm not going to play with the others. Some of the people said that I was the mayor of the banlieue. But if we have that kind of leadership and bring everybody at the same table, and if you're close to the people, because you need that credibility and those credentials to work with the population. So if the population is on your side, and I've been reelected because of that, I think that if we believe in ourselves and we're doing the right thing, we will be able, in Ottawa, like in Quebec, to work together. But you need also to build bridges. It's all about partnership. It's all about inclusiveness. And it's all about saying that they don't have the choice because it's in everybody's interest to do that.
And I thank you very much. We now come to the part of our debate which we have labeled character. We got a lot of questions similar to this one, and I'm very sorry, we didn't get a name on this question, but it sums up a lot of attitude that we found in many of the questions about where this city is going. So I will ask it to you on this person's behalf, but I think it speaks for itself. The question is, I am an ex-Montrealer. I found good, cleaner, safer, cheaper living in the suburbs. Sell me Montreal, so I'll move back to the city. You take the first question, Mr. Cote.
This is all about urban life. It's about variety, it's about diversity, it's about having the benefit of living together. I live downtown, and I enjoy fully the benefit of downtown. Now, some people might live in what I will call the middle belt, you know, NDG being one, or this place being one, and they enjoy close proximity to downtown, and yet they have family home with the backyard and all this. Or you can go to Pierrefonds or Pointe-aux-Trembles and have very much suburban style. There's a simple rule in geography: the further away you are from the center of the town, the cheaper the land is, and usually the cheaper the rent is. But that's the price to pay to have a very rich life. And I will invite people to come and see the new Montreal we want to build. It'll be much better than the one we have now.
Thank you, Mr. Cote. Mr. Bergeron.
This question is about quality of life in Montreal at an affordable price for everybody, especially young families. And all my life was about that. I'm a urban planner. I have worked my whole life as a professional and as a personal life, thinking about what has been done to make Montreal attractive, a place where that offer a quality of life at least comparable to what is offered in the surrounding suburbs. And the answer is the whole program of Projet Montréal, and it is, for instance, what we did in Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie and the Plateau Montréal as an administration in the last 4 years. A greener city, a safer city, a most beautiful city, a city that keeps everybody, that confirms the right to everybody to stay in the city. For instance, what we did with artists to protect the
And we thank you, Mr. Bergeron. We get the picture at this point.
If I have 1 hour.
Well, it's all about, and I agree with that, the quality of life. It's a matter of a quality of life. It's a matter of how you raise your children. It's a matter of the access to your job. So it's better transport, it's better parking. Yes, we have to clean the place because there's some ugly streets and graffiti and all that. It's about also efficiency. When I want to put up that smart city, using all that technology, having real time what's the true situation, make sure that we're using also those devices to have a better sustainable development, better work with the owners and the promoters to make sure that we have affordable housing, that we're also thinking about the students because we have 5,000 units for 200,000 students, so we have an issue there. Stop thinking it's not one size fits all. It's also to have a way of life downtown, but it's also to sell the boroughs because the beauty of our metropolis, it's all that flavor, all those smells, all those beauty, all that culture in different areas. And I think that
you're on the same wavelength as Mr. Bergeron. You guys obviously are writing a...
But it's not like the plateau because sometimes we have some problems with science. That's another.
Madame Jolie. Save it for later. Madame Jolie.
First of all, I would say to your person who asked the question that that person should move very quickly because under our administration, within the next 2 mandates, we'll make sure that Montreal is the best place to live in the world. How we'll do that? We'll have, first of all, a BRT of 130 kilometers. We'll make sure that throughout the 19 boroughs of Montreal, we have access to a surface metro, so a new collective transport. More than that, because there's still places in Montreal where there's still, that haven't been densified yet, well, we'll create new neighborhoods And in these neighborhoods, families will come and be able to reside in a neighborhood that is adapted to their needs. So, elementary schools, parks, and also public transit.
Thank you very much. One question that leaps out at me, and it is perhaps the biggest and moderately discussed problem the city is facing, is what this person asked, is people are leaving Montreal, people are leaving the island. And as much as we do try to make it a quality of life issue, it's a tax issue, it's a quality of service issue, and when those people go, they're taking money, tax money, away from the city of Montreal. And I'm not entirely sure that they're going to come back. How sure, and I'll pose to any of you, first one can go in, but how sure are you that once someone crosses that bridge, they're going to come back?
It's a value for money. Usually when the kids are out of the home, they come back. They leave when they have their first and mostly second child, because they move usually when the second child arrives. It's very challenging. 40,000 families, 38 moved out of Montreal from 2006 to 2011, and only 900 the increase. So it's a huge gap. Now, families are the ones which are choosing to live in the suburb. To turn that tide around will be very difficult. We all have more or less policy which are quite similar, to be honest. It's a question of execution. But we have to make the city more attractive for family with 2 kids. There's no doubt about it. And keep the taxes down. There's no more room for increasing taxes.
Let me give you an example just regarding transport. You cannot work in silos. I believe that we need more reserve lane. I believe that through buses, I can't tell you what will happen in 2020, but the people want some answer right now. So we need to have some short-term answer. But if you want to have those kind of answer, you have to learn to work together. We already have a management plan for all of the Greater Montreal area, and we'll have to apply it. So the important role of the mayor, who's not only the mayor of Montreal, but also the chairman of CMM, will have to play a very big role in access, fluidity, and to make sure that we'll be able to enhance altogether the way of life. So after that, we will be able to have better position, and it will have an impact on the people if they want to come back, for example, on the island of Montreal. So this is realistic, this is pragmatic, and this is the way that we can do in the short term.
Thank you. Madame Joly, anything to add?
Well, if I look with maybe friends or family members that leave Montreal, why they do so is, yes, because of the second child that is arriving in the family. So we've decided to create a new accessibility program, so a property access program for young families and targeted to these young families. And more than that, we need to make sure that promoters build housing that is adapted to these young families at a price that is not bloated, not completely crazy. And how do we do that? We make sure that there's parts of Montreal where land is available that we can decontaminate, and that can be done through federal and provincial programs. And we'll make sure that we work with promoters, and that way the prices are adapted to the reality of the market for these families.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron, anything to add? We're
Yeah.
very tight on time.
The question is not to convince families to come back in Montreal, but to convince families of Montreal to stay on the island of Montreal. And that is possible. To prove that, we already succeeded in the first half of the 80s with the Opération 20 000 logements. If you know these new neighborhoods, Angus One, Petite Bourgogne, André Grasset, 20,000 new housing units were built for families and for all types of household, and especially for poor people, because 1/3 of the whole 20,000 housing units was reserved for poor people, HLM, coopérative d'habitation, and all these things. It was done 25 years ago. We can do it again. The solution is create new neighborhoods. the Maritime Gateway, Hippodrome, Quartier de la Falaise, Intercourtyard, and Quartier Bonaventure. Of these 4 new neighborhoods will have a capacity of 100,000 people. And that's possible, we will do it.
And I thank you very much. And now we proceed to the 8th and final question in the topics that we have put together before proceeding to what we refer to now as the bonus round. And once again, this question was quite indicative of a lot that we got, and we decided just to try to make it as simple as possible. All of you have spent this campaign talking about what you want to do for Montreal, how you want to better this city and life for the people living in it. But the reality is, even though the odds are pretty good that somebody on this stage tonight is going to be the mayor of Montreal, you're also going to be the 4th mayor of Montreal we've had in a little over a year. One mayor resigned after allegations before the Charbonneau inquiry, another mayor was arrested. The 3rd mayor is essentially an interim position, so expressed no interest in running for the job. We have no choice every year to send you $5 billion of our tax dollars. We do have a choice over who we give our trust to. And so our question is very, very simple. Why should we trust you, Mr. Bergeron?
You should trust me because I spent my whole life dedicated to the future of Montreal. As a teacher of urban planning, as a writer of politics for the government, and in the last 10 years and 8 years as an elected person, as a member of the city council, unfortunately in the opposition. You should have confidence in me because I did not decide 4 months ago, I want to be mayor and to form a political party, what is available around me. We took 10 years to build a political party with perfect integrity. The integrity is in the DNA of our party. You may have confidence in us because we have managed 2 boroughs and we manage them so well, especially regarding to the budget, to the finance. And just look, just go on the plateau around the Laurier School at the exit Laurier or Metro Laurier, and just look what we did there. And
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron.
You will understand that you can trust us.
Mr. Kader.
With me, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most public figure in Quebec for the last 20 years, because this is my vocation. I love people. I love to serve people. We have to be humble, but I had the privilege to be member of parliament for the last 16 years. I've been fighting for Montreal cause. I've been serving my country. I've been there when it was the time. I play a role after 9/11 as a Minister of Immigration and Citizenship. I was a Minister of Sports. I was also in charge of Francophonie. And I'm very, very close to people because that's what I want to do. My DNA is people, to serve people. And we have a great team. People, I have almost 70% of newcomers. Yes, I have people from Union Montréal or Vision Montréal and even former member of Projet Montréal. But I'm for Montréal. I'm not there for a party, and I'm going to be there for you like I've been there all my life.
Thank you, Mr. Kader. Madame Joly.
I don't have political experience, and I'm very proud of it. I'm a lawyer, and I'm also ran a business, and in all the projects I've managed, it was always clear that I was able to gather a fantastic team. We have a team, a lot of us are newcomers in politics, people aged between 25 and 45 that decided to have the courage to stand up for Montreal and to give the best they have. May they be architects, engineers, entrepreneurs, artists, lawyers. And we want to make sure that Montreal, not only that you trust us, but that we gather the best talents at City Hall, but also within civic servants.
And we leave it there. And we give the last word to Mr. Cote.
Montreal has given a lot to me, and I would be honored to give some of it back. I have 40 years of experience with large organizations. I have 40 years of involvement in community organization, and I've been quite involved with community organization, from the YMCA to a whole array of cultural organization. I've been successful in what I've undertaken because I've taken the time and I've teamed up with people who helped me to be successful. I've put together a great team. Russell Cooperman is my candidate for borough mayor in NDG, and you know him well. I get along with people, and that's important in the model we want with free vote at the city council. I would like to change the way the city is run, the city council run. So I believe I can be trusted, but ultimately it's your decision, and I'll respect it.
And we thank you very much, Mr. Cote. Ladies and gentlemen, we now reach the point where the candidates have been taking questions from us. Now they're going to be taking questions from each other. Each candidate on our stage will have 1 minute to ask one opponent a question. That opponent will have 1 minute to reply. And our questions begin with Mr. Coder.
My question is to Marcel, that I respect. I believe that, we have a few files that we are in agreement together. We are all there for the right reason. But I was annoyed by one of your main coalition partner, Madame Mayoral. Can't talk about...
Okay, please, take your time.
You're eating my time, please. We want all to defend the language, we want all to defend the citizen, but I was truly annoyed, and I think it's unacceptable to have a language cop in the city hall for your future executive committee. I would give you my time so you can explain what you want to do with that, because I'm totally against it.
There's two parts to your question. First, Madame Mayoral, Montreal has to be run by all Montrealers. And half of this island is Péquiste, the other half is Liberal. The city government, at the city level, that doesn't matter. We have to get everybody in the tent. That's the only way we can run the city properly. And yes, I have Madame Mayoral, but I have also Marvin Rothbrand or Russell Cooperman, who is an MLA on the other side. That's the number one question. On the language cop issue, there's no language cop. There'll be somebody in charge of looking after the language issue. We cannot let the Quebec government be the only actor on this file. We have to actively manage it. There'll be one person on the executive committee looking after the French, one person looking after the English issue. They're quite different, and there won't be any bureaucrats or any cops or anybody hired, inspector. There's enough of them already in Quebec City.
Thank you, Mr. Cote. Madame Joly, your turn to ask a question. Right, please.
Mr. Meny, I'll ask the question to my three opponents at the same time. But I'm convinced they can answer.
And they each get to like 20 seconds. So.
Max, well, you can say yes or no.
Okay.
As party leaders, will you commit to putting aside party discipline and allow all city councillors of your team to support my administration?
Start with you, Mr. Cote.
Well, this is a biased question, and I don't buy it. But Coalition Montreal is for free vote. Free vote exists in all North American cities but Quebec. Political parties are electoral machine, period. The rest of the time, councillors are ready to, can vote the way they want, and that's the way Coalition Montreal will be.
And we'll give it to Mr. Cote. Mr. Coder.
First of all, it's my 10th consecutive election, and I think that the first thing is to respect people's judgment. So I will see what will be the result, and then if you want to work with me to be my advisor, or if you want to go in federal politics, I can give you some tips.
Mr. Cote.
No, hang on, no, just to reply. No. I still need a reply from Madame Jolie. You've got 20 seconds.
Oh, sorry, I did not follow the discussion.
That's a good answer, Michelle. That's a good answer.
I think that is a trap, and I don't want to call it a trap.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Now, Mr. Cote, your turn to ask a question.
My question will be for Madame Jolie. For the past 5 years, you have worked for a public relations firm, Kron Wolf, as the head of their small Montreal operation. What experience, and this is the longest job you ever had, what experience have you gained in this job that could be used in kickstarting the economy, regain investor confidence, and contribute to bring back the thousands of young Montrealers who have left the city in the past 10 to 20 years?
I'm very happy you asked the question, Mr. Cote, because as in being in charge of one of the most family business companies, I was able to triple the revenues, and not only that, but also double the profitability. So I'm very happy, and that within 24 months. So you talk to Andrew Molson, he'll tell you he was very happy. Not only that, I'm in all the organization I've been involved in all the major boards I've been sitting on. I was able to gather a very good team. And that's why I'm very proud of people like Lorraine Pagé, Marie-Claude Johnson, Mathieu Bélanger, Karine Metwali, people that are either urban planners that studied in Concordia, at McGill, at Cambridge, at Oxford, at Columbia, at great universities throughout the world. People that decided to stay in the city, to invest in the city, like I decided to do, and to give the best we have to revamp Montreal and to really change Montreal's mojo.
And we thank you. And the final question goes to Mr. Bergeron.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Meny. My question will be for Mr. Cote again. Mr. Cote, after a long and successful business career, you decided to run for public office. I, like many, applaud your desire to serve the public good. And so, Mr. Cote, what I don't understand is why you have chosen to run such a negative campaign. This is my third election, and your campaign is the nastiest I have seen. Monsieur Cote, I can't believe all of this was your idea. Who decided to be so negative? Was it Louise Arène, your co-campaign director?
Okay, I'm surprised by your statement. To be honest, I tend not to accuse people or talk about my opponent. I think we should all sell ourselves, and I trust the good judgment of the population. There was a mistake made in my campaign, and I took full responsibility, you know, I turned the page. People could see how I can manage a mistake or manage under pressure. I think I did well. But Mr. Bergeron, I'm surprised for you to think that I've run a negative campaign.
Mistake, many of them.
It is for the population to judge. And I'll let it stand on that.
Candidates, we're out of questions. It is now time for your closing statements, and we begin with Mr. Cote.
Montreal is at a critical time now. We need, as a mayor, somebody who can make the tough decision. We need, as a mayor, somebody who will have the right priorities. We need, as a mayor, somebody who will not pursue pie in the skies because we won't get pie in the sky. I offer my experience, I offer my energy, I offer my ability to get along with people. I have a strong team throughout all boroughs. We have put down on papers our commitment to the whole population, our commitment to the Anglophone and to the cultural communities. It's all in writing. I think we have more explicit commitment than anybody else. And I enjoy you. Go and vote on November 3rd and vote for your interests and those of all Montrealers.
Thank you, Mr. Cote. Mr. Coder.
Thank you. On November 4th, Équipe de Nicodère will roll up our sleeves and get to work. Équipe de Nicodère has the results-driven team of trusty City Hall veterans along with 68 newcomers to tackle the issues. We are a team that will listen and that has your interests at heart. On Monday, the four of us addresses the economy at the Chamber of Commerce. I was the only one who spoke English. Common sense dictates that we maximize our strengths to restore Montreal's stature, not hide them. Among our commitments, we will stop corruption with an aggressive, no-nonsense approach. We will implement a pragmatic, action-oriented plan to improve traffic. We will fight the PQ's valued charter in court if necessary. There will be no executive committee language cut as proposed by Mr. Cote's partner. We will get Cavendish extended. We will respect you and your wallets. All Montrealers will be treated as first-class citizens. You know, you can improvise to be the next mayor of Montreal.
Thank you.
I'm ready. I've got leadership experience. You know where I'm coming from. I have a great team. Don't forget to vote on November 3rd.
This election is the most important of the last and next 25 years. And so you have a big decision to make on November 3. As I said in my opening statement, either the Nicodère will be the next mayor or someone else will. For those of you looking for something better than 4 more years of business as usual, I offer this, an ambitious and optimistic vision for our city. To make it great again, with better public transportation, with more families choosing to remain on the island, and with human scale improvement, street corner to street corner, borough to borough across the city. I also offer you a team with solid credentials and impeccable integrity. No rookie mistakes at Projet Montréal. And we don't say one thing in the East and another one in the West. I hope Projet Montréal can count on your support. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Madame Jolie. Madame Jolie, you get the last word.
On November 3rd, you get to set Montreal on a new path, a new course. On November 3rd, you can vote for real change. I entered this race because I believe that Montreal and Montrealers deserve the chance to build a dynamic, prosperous, and caring city, one that is based on sound principles of ethical governance. Restoring integrity will take hard work. We can't keep using old models and hope they produce new results. Integrity is the first step to a better quality of life. With transparency on how we do things, we can begin to improve our neighborhoods, develop public transit that serves everyone, and create the conditions to attract new investments. If, like me, you believe that it's time for Montreal to proudly confront the future, then let's work together and elect real change on November 3rd. Join me in launching a stronger, prouder Montreal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, candidates. Candidates, I thank you. I wish you all the best of luck. And ladies and gentlemen, if I do say so myself, this evening was a success. And if it was thanks to all of you. So now, give yourselves a hand. I really thank you.